Ellis, who has 4 minutes. Deputy Ellis.
Good. Minister, as you know, we are in the middle of a major housing crisis and homeless crisis, which your government is failing to address. And in the midst of all this, your government is complicit in the sale of mortgages from Permanent TSB. The state is a major shareholder in Permanent TSB, owning 75% of the company. This is also a company which was bailed out by taxpayers' money to the tune of €4 billion. Permanent TSB has recently sold its Project Glass loan portfolio to Start Mortgages, an affiliate of the vulture fund Lone Star. This is a portfolio containing 10,700 home loans, which were originally considered by Permanent TSB to be non-performing. Of these 10,700 home loans, 7,400 are owner-occupier mortgages and 3,300 are buy-to-let properties. However, it has since emerged that the portfolio also includes performing loans. Minister, we are not talking about people who have mortgages and have not paid them in 10 years. We are talking about real people who are genuinely paying their mortgages and having painstakingly made prior arrangements with Permanent TSB and which they have adhered to. Sinn Féin was opposed to this sale, and we called on the government and the PTSB to stop this. Permanent TSB, being 75% state-owned as well as bailed out by the state, should not use vulture funds to evade its responsibility to these people, and nor should the government as its primary shareholder. A typical example of one of these cases that has come to me in my constituency office recently is the case of a husband and wife who have resided in their house in Finglas for over 20 years and have resident with them 4 children and a grandchild, and 1 child is disabled. The husband is in full-time secure employment. They have a mortgage of just over $100,000. He has an agreed amount to pay per month and is up to date currently with his repayments. In fact, the husband has offered to increase his payment from the agreed amount to pay off what he still owes in a shorter time. Minister, if their house is repossessed, then you will have a family of 7, including the disabled person, being made homeless. This individual has had his mortgage sold to this vulture fund, and it is causing him and his family great uncertainty and distress. From the cases I have received in my constituency office, it shows that Permanent TSB has been duplicitous in not adhering themselves to these arrangements by agreeing to sell them to these vulture funds. Permanent TSB have said that if a borrower has agreed a restructure or an alternative payment arrangement, and that they have consistently made payments in line with the terms of the restructure, then these terms will be honoured by Start Mortgages. What guarantee have we that Start Mortgages will honour these arrangements made with borrowers and no one will lose their homes? Additionally, another solution could have been that Permanent TSB could have looked to the local authorities to put in place a buy-to-rent scheme. Minister, we need answers in regards to this. There is a responsibility on yourself and your government to address this issue. What have you done to address this issue?
Can I get Minister Darcy has 4 minutes.
Thank you, Les Corla. Since the onset of the financial crisis, progress has been made by the banks in reducing non-performing loans from their peak. Non-performing loans at the banks in which the state has invested have reduced by around 70% from $54 billion in 2013 to $16 billion to the end of June this year. This reduction includes the recently announced sale of a portfolio of non-performing loans by Permanent TSB, Project Glass. A major contributor to the progress has been the number of mortgage restructures the banks have agreed with their customers. At the end of June 18, across the system there was almost 136,000 mortgage restructures in place covering private dwelling homes and buy-to-let facilities. Despite this progress, non-performing loan ratios at the Irish banks remain at an elevated level and are well above the European average of 4%. Permanent TSB is a particular outlier in this regard, with a ratio of 25% before the product loss sale. Given this position, the banking regulatory authorities have tasked the management and board of each institution with developing and implementing a strategy with the expectation that they will reduce the ratio towards the European average. Given the scale of the reduction required, it is unfortunate but inevitable that the recently announced loan sale was a necessary action taken by Permanent TSB. The consequences of the failure of this loan sale process would be exceptionally serious for Permanent TSB. It is important that I highlight the strong protections that are in place for borrowers following a sale of the loans to a non-bank. The Minister for Finance himself has stated on a number of occasions that the protections for borrowers in place before the sale remain unchanged after that sale. In this regard, it is important to note that there are no changes, Deputy, to the rights of a borrower whose loan is sold by a bank. All terms and conditions attached to the mortgage contract remain in place, including the terms of restructure agreed with the bank before a sale. Permanent TSB has further reinforced this important point and confirmed that if a borrower has already agreed a restructure or an alternative payment arrangement, that they have consistently made payments in line with the terms of restructure, then these terms will be honoured by START. In addition, it should be noted that START Mortgages is a retail credit firm regulated by the Central Bank since 2008. When dealing with borrowers, retail credit firms are bound by the same regulations that currently apply to Permanent TSB. Like Permanent TSB, they are required to comply with the Consumer Protection Code and the Code of Conduct for Mortgage Arrears when dealing with borrowers who are in arrears. The Minister for Finance has demonstrated his own commitment to strengthening these protections, further including his support for the bill introduced by Deputy Michael McGrath, which seeks to regulate the purchasers of mortgage loans. In addition, earlier this year, the Central Bank have been asked to carry out a review of the Code of Conduct for Mortgage Arrears to ensure that it remains effective. He has asked for a report to be completed as soon as possible, and the bank have said that the report will be ready at the end of this month. If, as a result of this review, the Code of Conduct for Mortgage Arrears requires amendment, a full public consultation process will be required in line with normal guidelines. I wish to highlight the comments of Mr. Ed Sibley, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Ireland. He said there is no evidence that non-banks are being more aggressive in terms of seeking a resolution than banks. In addition, he said that loan sales are a legitimate and necessary approach for banks to address non-performing mortgage loans, and to date there has been no material difference in the number of legal proceedings issued between banks and non-banks as a percentage of the total number of accounts in arrears. Separate to a loan sale, I draw your attention to the publication of two recent financial stability reports in September by the Central Bank of Ireland, which highlights some key findings in terms of non-performing loan resolution and long-term mortgage arrears. In terms of principal private dwelling houses, the term loan cure is used to describe the return of previously defaulted loan balances to performing loan status. And the research shows that this is the biggest driver of non-performing loan reduction. This reflects the success of the government supports that have been put in place over the last number of years to assist those who find themselves in mortgage arrears. Furthermore, the paper shows that loans that go through the MARP framework are twice as likely to end up in a lower arrears state 6 months later, which is a very positive indicator of how well their process is working, how important it is for borrowers who find themselves in difficulty to continue to engage with their banks. Minister for Finance cannot stop loan sales, even by the banks in which the state has a shareholding. These decisions, including composition of loans included in any loan sale, are the responsibility of the board and the management of the banks, which must run on an independent and commercial basis. The banks... Thank you, Councillor Corley.
Thank you very much. Minister, I don't know whether you heard that it's also been said that this included performing loans, and they've admitted that. The PTSB have admitted. And you didn't give me an explanation as to how these ended up in this portfolio. But why wasn't local authorities and others given an opportunity to bid on these units? Why wasn't, what contact was there with the Minister? What you're saying is the Minister won't interfere. But surely the Minister must give an opinion, must call people in and say to them, I don't agree with what you're doing. not necessarily interfering in the sense of interfering with the what you've agreed, but making his point clear that this is ordinary people. Some of these loans are performing, and we could end up with people ending up homeless or out on the streets as a result of this deal. We have no guarantee that that's not going to happen. You know, we've seen this with Nama when all the properties were sold off, and this was another tragedy that could have helped solve the housing crisis that we have, where properties were sold off, rental properties and private houses sold off in large quantities. And we now have the PTSB, which is 75% owned by the state. It is absolutely calamitous, it's wrong, and you know, Minister, and anyone with a bit of sense knows that this does not make sense. And I'm asking, Minister, that, you know, this is a done deal by the sound of it. It's already done and dusted, and we are now picking up the pieces, and in the future we'll pick up the pieces of some of these people who will be left on the streets, and that's what will happen. These vulture funds are not buying these for the good of their health. They are out to make a killing, and that's what they're doing. They're getting reduced rates. Instead of offering it to the people who have these mortgages, offer the same deal to them.
Thank you very much, Deputy Ellis. Minister, to conclude, please.
The Minister for Finance, Deputy, cannot stop loan sales, even by the banks in which the state has a shareholding. These decisions, no, they cannot. These decisions, including the composition of the loans, included in any loan sale, are the responsibility of the board and management of the banks, which must run on an independent and a commercial basis. The bank's independence is protected by the relationship frameworks, which are legally binding documents, which the Minister cannot change unilaterally. I am aware that some loans were transferred, but there was cross-compliance issues in relation to some of those loans, Deputy. And unfortunately, if there is a loan that is performing, that is cross-securitized with another loan for another property, well, unfortunately, for those loans did have to go across, or else there would be no security. One thing I just want to finish upon, Count Corley. Deputy, you've asked why didn't the local authorities purchase the loans? Who provides the money for the local authorities? The state. The state. So where are we going to get the billions of euros that are not accounted for? We're just going to make the money up. Sinn Féin have Harry Potter-style economics. Harry Potter-style economics. We're just going to pretend we have the money to purchase all of that loan book from. We're going to pretend we're going to make the money up. Sinn Féin is going to vanish the money. Well, Sinn Féin have a history. Sinn Féin have a long history of just grabbing money out of nowhere. But there is no prospect. There is no prospect. There is no prospect, Deputy. We can't just magic the money, Deputy. We cannot just magic the money. We have a budgetary process that we'll have in 2 weeks' time. This day, 2 weeks. And you just want to click up 2 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion. Magic. Sinn Féin, Harry Potter-style economics. Harry Potter-style economics. We'll just pretend it's going to appear out of nowhere. You'll be then complaining that the state isn't building. Harry Potter-style economics.
Please, Harry Potter. Hogwarts, we're in now, please. So can we